The pen is already in your hand before you realize your fingers are shaking. Not from fear. From the weight of knowing that the second that ink hits the last line of page 23, your life as Darius Ellington, age 22, kid from Jacksonville who used to sneak onto the roof to watch rocket launches from 40 miles away, is officially over. The recruiter across the desk doesn't notice your hand. He's already reaching for his copy of the papers. His eyes say he's done this 1,000 times. Yours say this is the only time that counts. You sign. The sound the pen makes is almost nothing. A whisper of friction. But inside your chest it lands like a door slamming shut in an empty house. Welcome to the United States Space Force, he says, flat and professional, like he's reading off a menu. He calls you Guardian before he calls you by your name. You'll hear that word so many times in the next 4 years that it stops sounding like a title and starts sounding like a warning. Hi viewers, have you ever made a decision in under 5 seconds that changed everything? Drop it in the comments, because what Darius just did is going to cost him more than he can count right now. Outside, the Florida sun hits you full in the face. The parking lot smells like asphalt and cut grass. A hawk sits on a streetlight 50 feet away and stares at you with that flat, unbothered look that birds have, like it already knows how your story ends. You sit in your car for 4 full minutes without starting the engine. You think about Mama Celestine. About the way she used to stand at the kitchen window on launch nights, arms folded, watching the sky go white on the horizon without saying anything. You think she understood something about distance that you're only now starting to feel in your bones. You joined because space always felt like it was calling you specifically. Like the dark between the stars had your name written somewhere inside it that only you could read. What you don't know yet, what nobody in that recruiting office told you, is that the Space Force doesn't want your wonder. It wants your obedience first. And wonder has a way of dying quietly when obedience gets loud enough. Basic military training starts in 6 weeks. You have a packing list. You've written the word socks at the top and stared at it like it means something. The engine turns over. You pull out of the lot. You don't look back. But you're already wondering what you just gave up. The bus stops and nobody tells you to move, but every single body on it lurches upright at the same time like someone cut a string. It's 0300 in San Antonio. The air outside smells like motor oil and dry heat and something chemical that you can't name. A man in a blue uniform is standing 20 feet away with his hands behind his back and his face set at a temperature somewhere just below freezing. He is not yelling. That is the first thing that gets you. Every movie, every YouTube video, every story your Uncle Reginald told you about the army, they all involved yelling. This man doesn't yell. He waits. And the silence he builds is its own kind of pressure. You feel it behind your eyes. You feel it in your back teeth. Move, he says. Once. That's it. You move. 8.5 weeks. That's what basic is. 8.5 weeks in the Texas heat, running 5 miles before the sun comes up, doing push-ups until your arms belong to someone else. Standing in formation so tight you can hear the person next to you swallow. You are not allowed to look at the person beside you when they go down. And they go down. Imani Tate, the woman to your left on day 4, hits the pavement in the middle of a drill at high noon and you watch her fall in your peripheral vision and you do not turn your head by even a single degree. That's the first thing they actually teach you. Not how to fight. Not how to operate anything. How to not look. Here is what nobody tells you about basic military training in the Space Force: it is not designed to break you. They don't want broken people near satellites that cost $700 million. What it's designed to do is find out which version of pressure you carry. Some recruits go loose under stress. Their focus scatters. Their hands get slow. Others go rigid, jaw locked, shoulders up, everything clamped down so tight they can't think past the next second. The instructors are watching for both. They mark it. They remember. You go rigid. By week 3, your hands stop shaking during drills. By week 5, you stop calling home. By week 7, you realize that you've stopped thinking about Darius Ellington from Jacksonville. The question is what's growing in the space where he used to be. The promotion board results hit your inbox at 6:47 in the morning and you read them on your phone in a bathroom stall because you don't trust your face yet. You made it. Officer Candidate School. Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama. 13 weeks later you walk out a second lieutenant with a gold bar on each shoulder and orders to report to Schriever Space Force Base, Colorado. Your assignment, Delta II. The 2nd Space Operations Squadron. Your job, on paper, is satellite command and control. You monitor the GPS constellation, 24 operational birds orbiting at 12,550 miles above the Earth. Every smartphone. Every cargo plane. Every guided munition in every active conflict zone runs off the signal those satellites produce. If one drifts, if one gets hit with interference, if someone tries to spoof the signal from the ground, your team catches it and you fix it. That's the official version. Here's what it actually looks like. You work 12-hour shifts in a room with no windows. The screens glow. The data moves in columns. You've trained your eyes to read the way other people read text messages, fast, without thinking, looking for the thing that's slightly off. Your clearance is TS/SCI, sensitive compartmented information. A room inside a building, inside a fence, inside another fence. You swipe 4 badges to get to your desk. You don't bring your phone. You don't bring a watch with Bluetooth. You don't bring your headphones. You sit in the glow and you watch and you document. After your first week, Zayden Briggs, 2 years ahead of you, sharp as a blade, the kind of officer who can brief a general without blinking, pulls you aside in the parking lot and says something you'll carry for years. They don't tell you the hardest part of this job is the silence you have to keep at home. You think he means classified information. He doesn't correct you. That night, Kezia, your girlfriend of 3 years, asks how work was. Fine, you say. Routine. She waits. You look at the wall. There's a version of you that wants to tell her about the satellite you spent 4 hours manually reacquiring after an anomaly, about the data streams, about what it means to hold navigation for 40% of the planet in a 12-hour shift. But there's no version of that story you're allowed to tell her. So you say it again. Routine. The ceiling of the SCIF is the same gray as the ceiling of your apartment, and lately you're having trouble telling which room you're really in. Your phone lights up at 0217 and your body is out of bed before your eyes are fully open. Restricted number. At this level you always answer restricted numbers. We need you at the base. Now. No rank. No name. No explanation. Just now, delivered in a voice that expects to be obeyed before it finishes the word. You are dressed in 4 minutes. You are in your car in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. The Colorado highway is empty and black and your headlights punch a hole through the dark, and somewhere above you, 20,000 miles up, in the silent cold of orbit, something is wrong. You don't know what yet. Here is what the public has no frame of reference for: nothing in space is permanent. Satellites drift by fractions. Solar radiation warps their panels over months until the drift becomes a problem. And then there are the threats that aren't natural. You've been briefed. You know which countries. You've seen the imagery, classified, burned into your memory in a windowless room, of a foreign object, a co-orbital vehicle, that parked itself 200 meters off the side of a GPS block IIF satellite and sat there for 11 days. Just watching. Measuring your response time. Calculating what you'd do and how long it would take you to do it. Tonight is something different. You walk into the operations center and the room is at a temperature that has nothing to do with the thermostat. Your commanding officer, Colonel Renata Okafor, stands at the main screen with her arms crossed and her eyes moving in the way they move when the data is telling her something she doesn't like. There are people on a video feed who are not in Colorado. There are people on that feed who are not wearing U.S. military uniforms. The asset is real. The window is 60 seconds. The room turns to you. Not because you're the highest rank in the room. Because you've been watching this specific satellite's behavioral pattern for 8 months and your reports are the only ones in the system that flagged this exact failure sequence 3 weeks ago. Your recommendation is 4 sentences. Your voice doesn't shake. The commands go uplink. The satellite responds. The anomaly resolves. $3 billion of GPS infrastructure that was 40 minutes from a cascading failure stabilizes back into its orbital slot like nothing happened. Okafor puts 2 fingers on your shoulder and nods once. That's the only ceremony you get. You drive home at 0519 and eat a granola bar in the parking lot because you have to be back at 0730 and there's no point going inside. The sky is going pink at the edges. Somewhere up there, your satellite is fine. And no one outside that room will ever know your name was in the room when it mattered. Not yet. But the question of who does and doesn't know your name is about to become the most dangerous thing in your career. The object doesn't have a name yet. Just a catalog number. A string of digits that nobody outside your clearance level has ever seen attached to anything that matters. You've been watching it for 9 months. Your new assignment at Space Operations Command, SPOC, Peterson Space Force Base, puts you in the Strategic Warning Division. The job is domain awareness. That's the official term. What it actually means is this: you track 27,000 objects in orbit. You know which 800 of them belong to adversarial programs. You know which 43 of those can maneuver on short notice. You know which 3 of those 43 have demonstrated behavior that has no scientific explanation. Your job is to watch them, document everything, and file a monthly report. The report goes up the chain. It comes back stamped, acknowledged. No action at this time. Every month. Same object. New data showing an orbit change that can only be intentional. Same stamp. Acknowledged. No action at this time. Your supervisor, Major Del Rey Hutchins, 15 years in, unreadable face, the kind of calm that only comes from seeing too much for too long, calls you into his office on a Thursday afternoon after you submit your 7th consecutive report on the same catalog number. He sits across from you and folds his hands on the desk and says, "Some decisions get made at levels where the math is different than the math we do down here." You know what he means. You just don't know yet whether you're okay with it. Because here is the thing about strategic warning that they don't put in the job description: the mission is not to stop anything. The mission is to see and record the seeing and pass it up and trust that someone, somewhere above your clearance, is doing something with what you hand them. The watching is the mission. Full stop. You used to look at the sky and feel something open up inside your chest. That specific feeling, big, clean, like the universe was making room for you. Now you look at the sky and see a tactical map. You see conjunction probabilities and orbital inclinations and the 43 objects you're not supposed to lose track of even for a day. That specific catalog number moved again last Tuesday. The new vector is 42 degrees off its previous track. No natural explanation fits. You filed the report at 0800. It came back at 1600. Acknowledged. No action at this time. You pour a glass of water at your kitchen sink that night. Kezia moved out 4 months ago. She didn't make a scene about it. She just said she couldn't keep having dinner with someone who wasn't really in the room. You didn't argue. You stood in the kitchen and watched her carry the last box to her car, and you thought about saying something true, something real, something that might have made her stay. You said nothing. Because nothing you could say was unclassified. The object is still out there. Still moving. Still building towards something you can see the shape of but can't name out loud. And the stamp keeps coming back the same. What no one is telling you is that the decision to act is already in motion. It's just being made in a room you haven't been invited into. Yet. The silver oak leaf lands on your collar at 0900 on a Tuesday, and by 0930 you are already being briefed on a guardian who hasn't slept in 4 days. Not 4 days of bad sleep. 4 days of none. Specialist Amara Osei, 23 years old, top orbital analyst in your new squadron, is sitting in the base medical office with her hands folded in her lap and her eyes fixed on a point 6 inches past the wall. The medic flags it. Your first sergeant flags it. It lands on your desk before your promotion cake is cut. You are now Lieutenant Colonel Darius Ellington. Commanding officer. 62 guardians. Their readiness, their welfare, their clearances, their marriages insofar as those marriages affect their work, all of it flows upward to you now. You sign letters of reprimand. You sign letters of commendation. Some weeks you sign both on the same afternoon for different people, and the pen feels exactly the same both times. Your predecessor, Lieutenant Colonel Priscilla Wynne, gave you exactly one piece of advice the morning she handed over the unit. She sat in the chair that was now yours and said, "You will want to fix everything. Fix what's breaking the mission. The rest finds its own level." You call Amara in on a Wednesday. She sits across your desk, spine straight, face locked down tight, and you recognize every single thing she is doing with her body because you did all of it once in a chair exactly like this one. You see the thing behind her eyes that she's working hard not to show. You ask her what she needs. She stares at you for a long second like the question is in a language she wasn't expecting. Then she tells you. You fix what you can fix. The shift rotation. A temporary clearance reduction so she can decompress. A week of light duties. You can't fix the weight of knowing things that have no release valve. You can't fix the fact that the job requires her to carry classified information like a stone in her chest every single day with nowhere to put it down. But you fix what's in your lane. 6 months later, Amara Osei briefs a 4-star general without a single note in front of her. Clean. Precise. Authoritative. The general nods twice, and that's the highest praise you'll see in that room. You stand at the back wall and say nothing. But your daughter Camille's school play was the same night as the general's briefing. You chose the briefing. You always choose the briefing. Camille is 11 years old and she understood without you asking her to. She sent you a text that said it's okay, Daddy, and you read it in the parking lot and sat with it for a while. That's the part that cuts the deepest. Not the anger. The understanding. An 11-year-old should not yet know how to absorb a parent's absence without making it a problem. She learned that from watching you. The squadron is running at 94% readiness. The metrics are excellent. What no metric measures is what it cost. Before they even finish closing the door, you know this brief is different. Not because of the room. Not because of the 14 people seated around a table that normally holds 8. Because everyone in the room surrendered their phones at the entrance, signed an NDA inside a SCIF, which you have never done before, not once in 17 years, and nobody has made eye contact with anyone else since they sat down. You are Colonel Darius Ellington now. The Silver Eagle on your collar. The kind of rank that means you've survived long enough and performed well enough and kept your mouth shut at the right moments often enough that the system trusts you with its harder questions. This is its hardest question. The brief is 2 hours. Unclassified summary, an adversarial co-orbital vehicle, the same catalog number you flagged as a major, the same object that collected 11 months of acknowledged, no action at this time stamps, has executed a precision maneuver. The new vector puts it on an intercept trajectory with a critical Allied asset. The conjunction window is 72 hours. The window to respond is narrower than that. The room turns to you because your files on this object are the most complete record in the classified system. 3 years of monthly reports. Every micromaneuver documented. Every anomaly flagged. The whole picture, built one report at a time while the stamp came back the same every single month. You are not the highest rank in this room. 2 of the people at the table are not wearing any uniform at all. But this is your data. This is your read. They want your recommendation. Your mouth is dry. Your voice is not. You give 4 sentences. Measured. Built. You've been constructing this recommendation in the back of your mind for 3 years without knowing when it would be needed. It covers timing, signal, and consequence, specific enough to act on, careful enough not to create an incident that diplomacy can't contain. The room exhales. Your commanding general, Renata Okafor, promoted twice since you last worked directly under her, gives you a single look across the table. Not approval. Acknowledgement. The difference matters. Approval means she's glad you did it. Acknowledgement means she expected nothing less. The decision propagates upward. Out of your hands. Into rooms you will never enter. You walk to the parking lot in the Colorado cold. Your breath fogs. The geostationary belt sits silent above you, packed with objects that don't care what you recommended or why. But it was the right call. You know that. You have to keep knowing that. What you don't know is that your 4 sentences just put your name on a list. Not a bad list. A very specific list. The kind that exists only in rooms with no windows and no record. Your phone is still at the front desk where you left it. When they hand it back, there are 2 missed calls from a number you don't recognize. Your spouse Tamika pins the star on your shoulder and her hands are steady but her eyes are doing something she doesn't have a word for. 1 silver star. Brigadier General Darius Ellington. The room applauds. Flags frame the stage. Someone gives a speech that says your name 15 times and mentions your family's sacrifice twice, both times in the last paragraph, both times quickly. Your daughter Camille is in the 3rd row in a blue dress she picked herself. She is 17. She flew in from college orientation in Atlanta to be here, and you did the math on what that cost her schedule, and then you stopped doing the math because the answer was uncomfortable. The star weighs less than the oak leaf. That surprises you every time you think about it. At this rank, you don't watch satellites anymore. You watch people who watch people who watch satellites. You manage budgets with 9 zeros. You sit before Senate subcommittees and explain in unclassified language why the Space Force requires the funding it requires without being able to say what you know that makes the funding urgent. It is a performance. Everyone in the room understands it is a performance. Everyone plays their position. You testify. The subcommittee thanks you. The funding comes back partial. You return to the Pentagon and begin executing a mission with 80 cents on the dollar you needed, which is a sentence you have now said in 3 separate fiscal years. The 4 sentences you gave in that Colorado briefing room produced results. You were read into the outcome 6 months after the fact, in a windowless room, by a man whose name you were not given. The Allied asset is still operational. The adversarial vehicle is in a new orbit, one that is less useful to whoever built it. The system worked. Some nights, in your Pentagon area apartment with the city lights pressing against the window, you believe that fully. The system worked. Your years of reports and your one moment of being heard, it added up to something. Other nights you think about Amara Osei and whether the weight you helped her carry for a season is still sitting on her somewhere. You think about Kezia and the unclassified silence and the last box she carried to her car. You think about Camille in the 3rd row in the blue dress, 17 years old, already an expert at being proud of a parent who isn't fully present. You pour a glass of water. You go to bed. On your desk when you leave the office every night is a new brief on a new catalog number in the cislunar domain. Different object. Same region. Same absence of legal framework. Same absence of agreed rules. You write acknowledged on the routing slip. You pass it up. The cycle doesn't stop at your rank. It just gets quieter. 2 stars arrive with less ceremony than 1. You know the room by now. You know the speech. You know where to stand and how to hold your face during the applause. Tamika pins the 2nd star and squeezes your arm once, tight, and that squeeze carries more information than the 40-minute ceremony around it. Your daughter sends a voice note from her apartment in Chicago. She's 22 now and in her 2nd year of law school, and her voice in the note sounds like someone who loves you from a careful distance, warm, real, and measured. You are 51 years old and you have not slept more than 5 hours in a single night in 4 months. Major General Darius Ellington. Pentagon Office. A driver. A schedule managed by someone else. A clearance so layered that there are compartments inside it you are not authorized to access, which means there are operations occurring in your own domain, the space domain, the one you gave 3 decades to, that you cannot see and have been formally told not to seek. You think about that more than you expected to. You think about the 22-year-old who sat in a recruiter's office in Jacksonville with a shaking hand and signed 23 pages because the dark between the stars had always felt like it had his name somewhere inside it. You were right that it was calling you. You were wrong about what it was calling you to do. It wasn't calling you toward wonder. It was calling you toward this, toward the weight, the silence, the acknowledged, no action at this time that has followed you up every single rank like a shadow with perfect posture. Specialist Tomas Abra stops you in the hallway outside a briefing on a Thursday. He is 24. He has the same look in his eyes that you had at 24, that wide open, slightly reckless clarity of someone who still believes the work is everything. He tells you he wants to do what you do. He says it straight, no hedging, the way young people say things before the institution teaches them to hedge everything. You look at him for a long moment. You tell him to be excellent and be patient. You tell him the work is real. You tell him it matters. You do not tell him what it costs. Because the cost is not something you can describe to someone who hasn't paid it yet. And because some part of you still needs him to walk into it believing what you believed at 22. The machine needs that belief. You needed that belief. The work wouldn't get done without it. On your desk is a classified brief. New object. Cislunar. Maneuverable. Unknown purpose. You write acknowledged. You pass it up. You look at the photograph on the corner of your desk for a long time. You, Tamika, Camille. 12 years ago at a state park in Virginia. Camille is 9. She is holding your hand with both of hers and grinning at something off camera, and the light is hitting her face in that specific afternoon way that never photographs the same twice. You don't remember what she was laughing at. You wish you did. 4 stars. You don't remember exactly when the weight stopped feeling heavy and started feeling like the way you stand. Chief of Space Operations. The top. 9,400 guardians. A domain with no walls, no ceiling, no floor, no international agreement that anyone has fully honored. You brief the president. You sit in rooms where the decisions are so large they don't carry names, just reference numbers. You speak in the flat, precise voice you have been building since a San Antonio drill instructor taught you that calm is its own kind of authority. The room listens. The decisions propagate. You don't always know what they become. Tomas Abra is a major now. You heard through channels. Sharp. Decorated. The kind of officer who files thorough monthly reports and gets them back stamped acknowledged, no action at this time, and keeps filing anyway. 30 years from now, if the machine holds, he'll stand somewhere in a building like this one, in a uniform with more hardware on it than he ever imagined wearing, and he'll look at a photograph on the corner of his desk and try to remember what someone was laughing at. You retire in 4 months. There will be a ceremony. Flags. Chairs arranged in precise rows. A speech that will mention your name and mention your family's sacrifice, toward the end, briefly, in the last paragraph. Tamika will sit in the front row in something elegant. Camille will fly in. She will stand next to you in the photographs, and she will be taller than you remember, and you won't be able to track exactly when that happened. Some nights, when the building is quiet and the screens are dark and you are the last one in the office, you walk to the window. You look at the sky. Not the tactical map. Not the 43 maneuverable objects you've been tracking for a decade. Just the sky. The dark between the stars. The thing that made a kid in Jacksonville stand on a roof in the small hours while the horizon went white and the ground shook and his mother watched from the window with her arms folded and said nothing. You were that kid. You are still that kid. But you are also every single thing that happened after him. Right now, on a government website, a form is loading. 17 pages. A drop-down menu asking about citizenship. A series of questions that feel routine until they suddenly don't. And somewhere, Jacksonville, maybe, or Memphis, or Chicago's South Side, a 22-year-old is sitting at a laptop with their hand resting over a touchpad and the cursor blinking on a button that says Submit Application. They're waiting to feel ready. They'll feel it in about 3 seconds. They'll click. They have no idea. They'll learn. They always do. If this story moved something in you, if you've ever signed your name to something that cost more than you expected, if you've ever given your best years to a system that stamped your reports and kept moving, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story on this channel. Every week we bring you a new world to step inside, a new life to understand from the inside out. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what hit you hardest. Tell us what you didn't expect. Your perspective inspires the next person reading below you. The conversation you start tonight might be exactly what someone else needed to find. The cursor blinks. The form waits. The sky holds everything it knows. And the cycle, quiet, enormous, indifferent, begins again.